In celebration of the Covenant of the Goddess, or as we affectionately call it, COG, it is my pleasure to present an all too brief timeline. I hope to highlight some of the events that shaped our organization with you. It was the 1970s, the era of disco and tie-dye shirts. The internet existed, but few had access to it, and there was no Google. Memories of the hippie movement were still fresh, and feminism was on the rise, as was an interest in witchcraft, pagan or otherwise. If you were a seeker, books were hard to find, as were teachers and groups. This was partially due to the fact that if your religion included witchcraft practices, or you were interested in the occult, you could easily lose your job or your child. If you were not there, I want you to imagine what you might have done in this environment. If you were in California, you might have found yourself in one of the few places in the country where people gathered more openly and shared ideas. You might have interacted with one of the organizations or people shown here. In this cauldron of ideas and groups, a few people decided that an organization should be created to secure the rights that other religions had. A songwriter named Gwydion and an IBM programmer called Allison facilitated the very first meeting. Allison was appointed as the first national officer for this meeting. Some of the people who attended the first meeting came to make sure that the organization would not interfere with their groups. Some came to find community. Some came to work on the lofty goals of educating the public and securing religious freedom. In order to form a nonprofit, there are legal hoops that must be jumped through. The groups shown here were mostly covens from different traditions of the craft. They had to balance creating bylaws that both satisfied the legal definition of a nonprofit religious group in California with a desire to make sure that all voices in the covenant would be heard. These legal details were worked out, and the first bylaws were signed by 13 local congregations of our religion on the summer solstice. Then, on the Witches' New Year, Samhain, COG was formed as an advocacy organization. Its mission from the start was to foster cooperation amongst Wiccans and pagan witches in order to secure legal protection. The members also wanted to provide education through outreach and to nurture its members through dialogue and community. COG also provides clergy credentials for qualified members that are recognized in many states. Once founded, the fledgling organization was required by law to hold an annual business meeting. The first one of these was held in Northern California. COG runs its business meeting by consensus, a process where only proposals that intend to accomplish the common purpose of the entire group are implemented. Only officers and the budget are voted on, and even for these, discussion is encouraged. By 1981, the members of COG, desiring to build community, decide to hold a festival that runs parallel to its annual business meeting. Thus, the first Merry Meet is held. Merry Meet offers workshops, rituals, and shopping, proving that witches just want to have fun. It is 1982, and COG has expanded past California, allowing our organization to meet for the first time outside the state in Michigan.
To the other kids at St. Bernard Academy, they were the girls who didn't belong.
Whatever you do, stay away from them.
Why?
They're witches.
This brings us to the 90s. With the release of the movie The Craft and easy access to information on the internet, a new generation is introduced to pagan witchcraft. The books shown here are a small sampling of those geared towards young people, making it easier than ever to learn about pagan witchcraft and Wicca. In this era of expansion, COG works with the military to help chaplains understand the needs of a growing section of the population. This is also the time when clergy of our religion are first allowed to facilitate services in prisons, something that our members do to this day. If you are in the general population and you've heard of the Covenant of the Goddess, it's most likely it's through our interfaith work. Members of COG's clergy interact with people of other faiths with the goal to create a world where all living beings are honored and cherished as manifestations of the sacred. In 1993, we were not so welcome. The centennial of the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago would change all that. Many members of COG, along with other pagan organizations, fought to hold a public ritual in the park. This ritual garnered a lot of news coverage, and thus the 1993 Parliament served as a coming out of the broom closet for pagans, including witches and Wiccans. 40 years later, and members of COG are still making a difference. M. Maca Nightmare presents the Mask of the Goddess performance ritual at the Parliament of the World's Religions to rave reviews. The Texas Local Council hosts the We Can Make a Difference Diversity Awareness event. Touchstone Local Council hosts the 40th anniversary of COG's Grand Council and Merry Meet Festival. That brings us to 2020. The challenges of dealing with COVID have shown how resilient and creative our community is. COG also adapted by holding its very first all-virtual annual business meeting. This set a record by concluding the Covenant's annual business in one day, rather than the usual 3. This was also the year that COG reached out to the greater community via Facebook Live events and our Wednesday with Witches, a conversation with COG Zoom meetings. Thus, we gather together to celebrate not only COG's past, but its future. Looking at my crystal ball, I know that such a future must be made by all of us. We are COG, and we welcome all pagan witches who share our vision to become a friend or a member. For we know that everything she touches changes, and hope that you will help her create an even better covenant.